Hey everybody, this is the Sliders Review, and since it's Women's History Month, I'm here today to talk to you about The Serpent Queen, Season 1, Episode 1, Medici Beep. Yeah, I'm just not even gonna say that word. Anyway, so this is the second Queen Catherine Medici show character I've ever seen in a show. The first time I ever saw her was in Reign. Queen Catherine was the Queen of France, but she didn't always start off that way. She actually had a very interesting life before she became the queen. And she was a mean, ruthless queen at that. Very cold-hearted and mean and stuff. And so the show Reign, like it was on the CW for about 5 years or so, and it was loosely based off of the life of Mary, Queen of Scots. There was a lot of historical inaccuracy in that show, but there still was historical references and stuff like that in the show. And I really enjoyed that show, especially the first two seasons. After the first two seasons, it just kind of went but I kept watching nevertheless. And so then I was just kind of like, they're going more and more off like history. So I'm like, they should literally say it's loosely based, but they didn't want to say that. And so they kept getting criticized for being so historically inaccurate until it got to the final season. Then they started introducing Queen Elizabeth the first. Oh, actually, the last two seasons. And then in the last episode, they finally went back to historical like references and finally did away with Mary by the orders of the Queen Elizabeth, because she thought her cousin Mary, Queen of Scots, was trying to take her throne and stuff. So I appreciate they kept to like history towards the end, because all throughout the middle, it just kept getting crazier and crazier. And then because they kept like making stuff up, it was kind of like, well, okay, when they added a new character, I'm like, oh, that person probably doesn't exist. Oh, wait, they do exist. And so it's one of those things. But I really enjoyed the show Reign. So when I heard they was making another queen or another like historical period piece, but with like Queen Catherine instead, played by Samantha Morton, I was like, oh, I'm totally in, because like I love Samantha Morton. She was in Harlots and she was really good in that. She was also Alpha in The Walking Dead. And so like I've been curious to know what this show would be like, because it's on Stars and I don't have Stars, but Stars you can get 2 months for $1.99. And so like you're able to watch the first episode on the Stars app, or you can watch the first episode on the Roku channel app, or you can watch it on the first episode free at Amazon Prime. And so like this show got me very interested and curious, but there's one problem I have with it. See, before I even started watching the show, I watched clips on YouTube and I realized something. There's humor in this show. Not only is there humor, but there is like fourth wall breaking with like the Catherine character, at least her younger version, the Duchess Catherine, played by Liv Hill. And so I was just kind of like, why is there humor in this? I don't get it. Like, I like my period pieces for the most part to be serious. If they do add comedy, they better add it in a way that doesn't irritate me. But lately, I've been seeing a lot of humor in a lot of period pieces. Another Period, The Great, what's that other one called? Dickinson, and that Birdie thing that was on Amazon Prime. And I'm just like, why is there so much humor now in period pieces? I'm like, oh, wait. It has to be one person. Marvel, Disney. It has to be them, because like everybody is trying to be like them. And so everybody's like, oh, well, if humor works for them for over a decade, let's add humor in this. Even DCEU, which is probably no more, even they added humor and stuff. It's always Disney, Marvel, man, I swear. And so I'm a little conflicted with this show, because I like the historical stuff and the serious stuff they do with it. But every time they like break the fourth wall or like do some kind of like weird humor thing, I'm just kind of like, I don't know, man. It's weird. Now, to give Liv credit, she is funny with the way she does it. Like when she breaks the fourth wall, it's kind of like the Office type thing. But she does it in like real time, so she's not sitting down on the couch or nothing like that. But it's like she has deadpan humor, and it's like always on point, and I like it. So I can kind of excuse the humor for this and the fourth wall breaking only because it's interesting. Now the entire series is narrated by Samantha Morton. And so I'm kind of like, okay, I've only seen the first episode. So I was curious. I'm just like, so are they only going to show a little bit of like Samantha as Queen Catherine? And then everything's going to be a flashback with like Duchess, like Catherine? So I'm just like, oh, that sucks because I want to see Samantha in it because Samantha's doing a great job playing this cold hearted, like evil, like really ruthless type queen. And so I looked into further episodes on like the thumbnails and the descriptions. I'm like, oh, okay, Samantha is going to be in this a whole lot more. Because in the present day, it pretty much is going to retell the show of Reign, but probably more historical and stuff like that. I have no idea if this is loosely based or not. So far, everything seems to be making sense historical wise from what I researched. And so we're gonna see like, King Charles and everything, not the one from England. I'm talking about like the old days, the France king and everything. Her son, King Charles. We're gonna see Mary, Queen of Scots and everything. And so yeah, they're really gonna do some interesting things in here, I hope. And like so learning about Duchess Catherine is really interesting because when I watched Rain, maybe they talked about this, but I don't remember. It's been so many years. But like, there are some characters in here that I'm just kind of like, huh, I never knew that. Like Diane and everything. Diane was in Rain, and she was the mistress of King Henry and stuff. And so I'm kind of like in Rain. And so like I never realized that was Catherine's cousin and everything. And so like it was just played so much. It was on a CW Rain was. So it was more CW-ish, like a young adult novel type thing. And so, yeah, I was just like very confused by that. Also, I was confused by how she became like queen and like what happened to her parents and her grandmother and all this other stuff. And I'm just kind of like, wow, I never knew that. Now, the Catherine on Rain, boy, she was great. Oh my God, she was great in that role. It was to the point where she outshined the main actress who played Mary, Queen of Scots. Like she was just that great and stuff. But Samantha is doing an amazing job. But she's playing her more like stone cold, like stares and glare. But like I said before, she isn't in the first episode that much. I don't know how much she is in the series. So I am curious, and I probably am gonna get that 2 month $1.99 thing, but it's gonna suck because I don't need it for 2 months. I only need it for like a couple of days and stuff. But I'll check out the rest of the app and see what they got. They got a bunch of movies. Maybe I'll watch a bunch of Spider-Man movies. Who knows? And so like I really wish Esme would have played like the younger Catherine. Esme is the daughter of Samantha Morton. I've mentioned Esme before a couple of times. She's in that show Hannah on Amazon Prime. Go watch that and go watch my review. And so like, cause she looks like her actual mother and stuff. But to give credit, Liv is doing a good job, and Liv does resemble Samantha and stuff like that, so I'm okay with that. But it would have been cool to see Esme play that role. And so it starts off with like the kitchen staff, and everybody's being really rude to the one black maid. They call her it. And if they don't call her it, they call her big boobs and stuff like that. And so like don't even know her name. And she's been tasked with being the oops, I knocked my camera over. Tasked with being the new maid, personal maid to that of Queen Catherine. Because nobody wants the job because of how mean she is. And so she's delivering some fruit to her and like, Catherine offers her like an orange to eat and everything like that. And she asks, like what's her name is and stuff. And she's all like, my name is It. That's what they call me. But then Catherine pretty much almost kind of like gets direct with her, and and talking about have more respect for yourself and blah blah blah, stuff like that. And like, what's her name? And so her name is Rahima, I think it's called. And so like Catherine, just for whatever reason, starts telling her the story of how she became queen. Not sure why, she just does and everything. But Catherine's being very generous and gracious and nice to this girl, giving her an orange and everything like that. And so now we get the flashback stuff. And when we get the flashback stuff, it is Catherine, just Catherine. And like she's like not even so much a duchess yet, and she's delivering oranges. She's a maid. I'm like, oh, that's kind of weird. She was born to that of a nobleman and stuff, and a very rich one at that. Because she's born in Florence, the Republic of Florence in Italy and stuff. And so like she steals an orange and puts it in like her pocket. And so when she's delivering the oranges, she's delivering it to that of a nun. And she gets like spanked for doing something inappropriately. I forget what. And it's weird because this is when you get a lot of the deadpan humor and fourth wall breaking and stuff like that. And while it's being narrated by Samantha. And then all of a sudden, a bunch of men, they raid the place. All the women are hollering and screaming. And so Catherine is scared. So she decides that she's going to chop off her hair and put on a nun's outfit. And the one maid who is a dwarf, she helps her cut off her hair. And I can't even... Oh, Madlinda or Madlindy or something like that. Madeline, I'll just call it that. Mahild, I don't know what her name is. Mahildy or something like that. And so when the men bust in, I don't even think she has her like little hat thing that nuns wear. And so she gets sassy with them. But they can see her red dress underneath like the black like nun outfit. And so they take her. When they take her, they chain her up outside and everything. And so she starts to talk about how like she's important and everything, how she was born into Warady and a nobleman and everything like that who owned land, and like her father, her cheating father, he ended up dying, and then like about a week or so later her mom died. And then she starts talking about like she was raised by her grandmother after that, but then her grandmother died. And so she's all like, she thinks she's cursed because everybody she loves, who's supposed to take care of her, ends up dying. Now, there's a weird element in this. They might go the supernatural route with this show, and I hope to God they do not. With Rain, you couldn't tell if it was supernatural or not because they kept tricking the audience. But then in the final season, oh, then they really reveal, yeah, it is supernatural elements in this medieval show. And I'm like, ugh. And so they're doing the same thing here. Catherine like stares at like a dog or a puppy or whatever, and then she makes it die, and she's like, I have a power and everything like that. And I'm just kind of like, don't add that to the show. Well, anyways, as she's being chained up and everything, and she's cold and she's scared, and like this guy passes her. His name is Cosmo or Cosmimo, Riggery or something like, I don't know. He really is a real person from back in the old days. And she's all like, help me, help me. And he's all like, nah, I can tell you're going to be just fine, because he said he's a fortune teller. And so this irritates her because she wanted to be free. Now, one thing about Catherine in historical references is that she did believe in like people who could like predict the future, fortune tellers, stuff like that. And she always aligned herself with people like that, like Notre Dame and stuff. And so like next thing you know, in the morning, the Pope shows up. And he's all like, free her, 'cause that's his niece, apparently. I didn't know that on the Rain show. Now, it's Pope Clement the seventh. And so I think his name is Clement. That's how you say it. I don't even know what his last name is. But yeah, he's related to the Medicis and stuff. You know, when they come Pope, they change their names and stuff. And so he's the seventh one to have that name. And he's a really rude, arrogant Pope and everything. It makes you wonder. Every time you see these popes from back in period pieces, they always seem rude and mean and try to, like, get their way because they're like the holy man and stuff. And so, like, he tells her and everything, he wants her to marry King Francis's like youngest son, Prince Henry. And so, because Charles is the older one, and so Henry is the youngest. And so, but he's all like, you're so godly, ugly looking and stuff. So he has this one dude fix her up. And that's gotta be hurtful to her feelings and everything. Like talking about like she's not pretty enough and this and that. So they glamour her up, right? And so like she's all like, well, if I don't want to be married, and he's all like, well, you got no choice because you are. Because she marries this prince, and then she will become queen eventually and own like the land, and like it will help like the people of Italy out and stuff like that. This is one of the reasons why like Mary Queen of Scots was so important to them, because they wanted like Scotland and stuff. And so because England was taking up as many territories as they could, and Elizabeth was not playing around back in those days. And so, like, they doll her up, and now she needs a court and like a little entourage, you know what I'm saying? And so they start picking people. And so, one lady, I think her name is Abyss or something like that. She plays like some kind of flute thing, so she picks her, and she is Romanian. And then she sees the dwarf lady, Mahilde, and so like because she helped her back with the nuns and everything, she wants her. But then she sees Cosmino, and she's pissed still at him for not helping her, but he's all like, see, I told you you'll be okay, 'cause I can see the future and blah blah. So for whatever reason, she takes him, and I think she takes the dude who like dolled her up and everything. And so now she has her little entourage, her little court, and they go across the seas and they head all the way to France. And so like they meet King Francis, and I had no idea this dude was even in the show. Calm Meanie, Chief Miles O'Brien from Star Trek The Next Generation and Deep Space Nine. I could not believe he was in this show. I haven't seen that dude in forever. And it's funny because he's like Irish or something like that. And you can hear his Irish accent coming out, trying to be like, well, sound British. Nobody's trying to sound French in this. I can't talk, my lips against stuff together. It's cold, man. And so, like, nobody, that's the one thing that pisses me off about this and Rain. Nobody ever speaks French. Like, they don't have a French sounding accent. And it's really irritating. Everybody always sounds British. Even Mary Queen of Scots from Rain, she sounded British, but it was actually a New Zealand actress. And I'm just like, why doesn't nobody ever try to put on a fake, like, French accent and everything? And so she's there, and like, the king, he's like making fun of her, and everybody always makes fun of her. But the Pope is all like, your cousin Diane, she's gonna be there to help you out and everything. And so like she has to win over like Henry, but Henry's not there, he's jousting. And Charles, he makes fun of her, Francis makes fun of her, and so they're not gonna accept her, but she ends up like smoozing them and everything, and like getting over their ego, and so they accept her. And she realizes something. Her uncle, the Pope, lied to her about her dowry and stuff like that. And so she's realizing something. She can't trust nobody, because when she was in like the nuns' coven, one of the nuns pointed to the door in which, the room in which she was in and everything. The nun just like sold her out. And so she's getting to the point where she just can't trust nobody, not even her own uncle. And so then she finally meets Henry and they start to bond instantly. They're making him very nice and sympathetic. But I'm like, this is kind of weird because Henry was a mean king and everything. And he was really ruthless on Rain. And so I'm like, why are they going the sympathetic route? And so, like, they're bonding over a frog. He wants her to sing to him. They dance and all this other stuff. Well, of course, she ends up falling in love with him. And then so they get wed. And after that, they have to consummate their union. So they have to clickety clack, but they have to do it in front of everybody. That's how it was back in those days of your royalty and stuff. This happened on Rain on the CW, but it was so steamy and hot they had to edit it and everything. And that was the CW. Now on this show, they was really tame. They kept their clothes on and stuff, and so both Henry and Catherine are very feeling very awkward. They don't want to be watched. Now, what was really disturbing is back when the Pope had her in Italy, he had to make sure those men that captured her, because he had her captured and everything from the nuns and brought to him. He had to make sure her lady flap was still intact. Let's just put it like that. So they had to examine her down there, and they do it on screen, and they don't actually show that part. They just show her like bent over and stuff, and it's kind of like, dude, and everything. And so it is still intact and everything, and so she gets on top of him in very slow motion, and it was uninteresting. Let's just put it like that. And so one of the noblemen is like, they're jousting. Now, after it's done, Henry is feeling very uncomfortable. I don't know if he popped his lid too early or he just underperformed or what, but he forces her to get out his room. He just shouts and yells at her. So she goes and she stays in her room. They don't even sleep in the same room. Now, her and Diane are bonding very well. Diane loves to wear black and white. She tells her, like the best thing to be is a widow. You get the land, you get the money, and you get a little power and this and that. And so, like, her and Diane are cousins, and they're getting along very, very, very well. Well, towards the end, Catherine goes to visit her husband in his bedchamber. And don't you know it, Diane is laying in the bed and Henry is on top of her. And she is mortified by this. Her own cousin, who is older than her, by the way, is doing her husband and everything. Now, Henry is known for being a cheater. And also, Catherine is known for being a cheater as well. And he suspected her of cheating in historical times. And then that's when he went to Diane, supposedly making her his main mistress. And she had a lot of influence over him. And so basically he was like a puppet and she was like, running things and stuff in historical times. So Catherine is furious and she is pissed and she ain't gonna just let this go, So then we get into like the present day. And we see Queen Catherine is just like talking to Rahamina. And so then all of a sudden, Catherine flips out on her and is all like, guards, take her away. I'm like, what the world just happened? She's all like, the one thing I learned in life, you can't trust nobody. So she doesn't trust Romina. And they're like, why not? And so Romina, they take her back to her room and they close and lock the door. And then we see Romina's upset and crying, talking about she's done nothing wrong. She doesn't understand what she did. Then we see a smirk on her face. And what does she do? She pulled out an orange from her pocket, very similar to what Catherine did back when she worked with the nuns. Somehow Catherine saw her do that and is not too pleased. Now, Catherine is pissed because she offered Romina some oranges, so she was not expecting her to steal from her. And so I'm very curious to know what's going to happen in the rest of the 7 episodes. And Romina is still in the show, so I'm very curious and stuff to know how their relationship go. Now, Romina is not based on nobody that I can find back in the day. Neither are like her court members and stuff. But everybody else in the show is pretty much from back in historical times. And so I am very, very, very curious to see how this show is gonna progress. It's interesting, it's cool, but I just wish they would have taken out the humor. But now I'm kind of okay with the humor. It's kind of interesting. That deadpan humor is pretty funny from Liv and stuff. Happy Women's History Month, everybody. All right, I'll talk to you later. Bye.